When I was 14 years old, I had my first of 7 knee surgeries, and all of those knee surgeries before I was 19 years old. And so with each surgery came another prescription of Vicodin, and it wasn't just to take after surgery, it was a monthly prescription, whether I needed it or not. And because I was also struggling with some mental health stuff, I was on a ton of psychiatric medication, and that changed my life. I didn't have a chance, really, when you think about it. When I think about it, 16, I dropped out of high school because I couldn't really function. I was fighting everybody, and I hated myself. I hated life. And by the time I was probably, 25 years old, I had about $200,000 worth of debt from medical bills because I was constantly doctor shopping. Finally, at I think 27 years old, as I was doctor shopping and was not given pills that I wanted, I was given a phone number to a pain medicine doctor. When I went to see this doctor, there was a line of people wrapped around the building coming out of their door. I paid a few $100s to see this doctor, and the very first visit, I walked out with Opana. And Opana at the time, this was in 2009, was basically the competitor of OxyContin. He also gave me morphine pills, Vicodin, and it wasn't really a challenge to get any of this medicine at all. I was in the midst of a deep addiction, and I had no idea that in just a couple weeks I would end up using heroin. So throughout, this doctor shopping and then finally ending up, using heroin, it was immediate. I was a heroin addict immediately. That's all that mattered. Until it was too much. It took over everything. So finally, just a few months, after all of this chaos starts to happen, I decide that I'm going to break into a prosecuting attorney's office for City of Middletown. And throughout that, I was charged with several felony charges: robbery, breaking and entering, felony theft, felony burglary. And I went on the run. Went to court one time, and I went on the run. And I went on the run for 3 years. And being on the run for 3 years, that's not a lifestyle I would wish on anyone. I left the state. And when you are on the run and you leave the state, unless you're on like America's Most Wanted, the other state really isn't going to know who you are if you get pulled over or, anything happens. They're not looking for you. They don't know who you are. And during that time, I ended up overdosing. When I overdosed, my body was pushed out of the vehicle that I was in by friends. But when they pushed my body out of the vehicle, they didn't realize that I still had everybody's heroin that I had just purchased for the group of people I was with. I had that in my pants. And as I laid in a parking lot dying, someone came and saved my life with Narcan. First responders, police. And when I woke up, I didn't know what to think. I didn't know how to react or how to feel. And after I kind of figured out, these are paramedics and police, something bad happened. Something bad happened to me. I didn't want to go to the hospital because I needed to figure out what happened to me. Where's my purse? Where's all my stuff? Where's my dope? Where are my needles? Where's my kit? And then I realized, like, okay, my stuff's still in my pants. They didn't find that. I'm not under arrest. I didn't go to the hospital. I walked away. And when I walked away, everyone else walked away. The cops left, the paramedics left. And I walked over and I sat down on the curb and just kind of tried to process what had just happened. And then all of a sudden, those people come pulling up. They didn't come back for me. They came back for the dope. So I got in the car and just pretended like nothing happened. I didn't talk. They didn't talk to me. We all knew. And I started to just reconsider the value of my life. I started to really think about, I can't even call my mom right now and say, come help me. They didn't want to hear from me anymore. Nobody did.
The headstock of a guitar is notorious for breaking at its weakest point. With over 100 pounds of string tension, it's like a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. Creating what is called a scarf joint adds extra strength to this area. Our lives are constantly under tension. It's through our vulnerability we recognize our strength. By being aware of our weaknesses, we can preserve our integrity. By relying on a power greater than ourselves, we are clothed in strength and dignity.
So finally, after those 6 months of, still living in that toxic environment, enough was enough, and I got away. And I came back to Middletown, Ohio. Remember, that's where all of my felony warrants were out of that I had been on the run from for 3 years. But while I was trying to figure out what my next step would be, I met someone. I wasn't expecting to meet anyone, but we fell in love. And I was, still trying to figure out this whole recovery thing, and I didn't know how to have a conversation with normal people. And I told him right away, I just stopped using heroin like 9 months ago, and my whole life was completely different. And I have a whole lot of baggage. And he didn't care. That didn't scare him away. And I didn't know how to love myself. And we all know that if you can't love yourself, it's really hard to love someone else or let someone else love you. And so it was tough for a little while. And we got an apartment together right away. And right as we were starting to settle in, and right as I was starting to figure out, okay, I need to go get an attorney, and I need to turn myself in. We had a troublemaker a few doors down who sent the police to our door. They arrested me, and when they arrested me, I was booked in for 90 days for a probation violation from 3 years ago. So I still had to go to court. To have 5 felonies, I can't imagine anyone not going to prison for breaking into the prosecuting attorney's office. It's pretty bad. I had been an atheist my whole life. I was raised in church. I went to a private Christian school for a year. It was because I chose not to have a higher power. I chose not to have that connection because that meant consequence to me, I think. And I'm sitting in that jail cell in Middletown, and if you've ever been to the Middletown jail, they don't call it the dungeon for nothing. It's dark, it's nasty, it's dirty, and every single woman in there was throwing up from withdrawal from heroin, except me. So I'm sitting in that jail cell, no books, no pens, no paper, but there was a Bible. And I just grabbed the Bible and I opened it up. Didn't know where to start or where to turn to, and I just opened it up, started to read, not realizing that I would read the verse that would change my life. And it was Proverbs 31:25. And it said, "She is clothed in strength and dignity and laughs without fear of the future." And I had a full-on spiritual awakening right there in that Middletown jail. And I just remember saying, "Just take this from me. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this, and I don't know where to go from here. I don't want to die, and I don't want to live like this in my mind. Just take this from me." And he did. He did. And suddenly, I had this completely different outlook. And I mean instantly. A day or two later, I went in front of the judge. And instead of sending me to prison, he dropped every single felony. I took a plea bargain for a misdemeanor petty theft. And I went home that day. God showed up for me in that courtroom. And that was the pivotal moment of my life. So I was doing public speaking and sharing my story, and I was invited to sit on a public safety panel. And Dr. Sean Ryan was also on that panel. And Dr. Ryan is the Chief Medical Officer of Brightview. Brightview is an outpatient substance use treatment center that specializes in medication-assisted treatment. And it's founded in Cincinnati in 2015. So this treatment center had just opened up, and I emailed Dr. Ryan and said, "I need a job. I need someone to give me a chance, just one chance." He quickly got back in touch with me and said, "I think you would be a great candidate for peer recovery support." And so they brought me in for an interview, and they created a role for me at Brightview. Brightview didn't have anyone on staff that was there to primarily identify as a person in recovery from addiction. And so when I came to Brightview, I was able to co-facilitate group therapy, and now I could really help other people learn how to use these coping skills to get through life. Because just because addiction stops, right? Just because the using stops doesn't mean that life stops. Things are always going to happen in our lives. There's always going to be tragedy. There's always going to be struggle. But we have to learn how to live without going to drugs and alcohol to escape. And so with that, I was also given the opportunity to develop the clinical peer recovery supporter program that is used as part of the entire clinical program at all of our 13 locations in Ohio. After I developed that program and then staffed and trained everyone, I moved over to the community outreach side of things and focus on business development and marketing, relationship building. And a lot of what I'm able to do is go into the jails, into the skilled nursing facilities, the hospitals, and not only to meet people where they're at, meet people who are struggling, and talk to them and link them to quality treatment, but I'm also able to work with the providers and the social workers and the counselors. So I'm able to be that bilingual person that I can speak from the patient perspective, but I can also speak from the professional perspective. And I'm respected because of that. I've been given opportunities to go to Washington, D.C. with CNN. I've been on the debut episode for an A&E TV show called Addiction Unplugged, and I was just on Dr. Phil a couple months ago. How does that happen, right? How do all of these incredible things happen? It's mind-blowing that more than 7 years ago, I was homeless. I was unhealthy, unhappy, unsafe, unstable, and I wanted to die. And now today, I'm a wife, I'm a mom. My oldest child, she's 16 now, but when she was a baby, I signed away my parental rights, and my parents raised her. Now she has a room in my home. God gave me a second chance to be a good mom, and now I have a 4-year-old little girl, and she completely runs my life. It's incredible. I have a happy and healthy marriage, like a real healthy marriage. I can't imagine living that life that I used to live. I'm so grateful for my recovery. I'm so grateful for my life.